you start to make one change, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm sleeping better at night. And that sleeping better at night leads to another change, and you make that, and all of a sudden you start feeling better during the day. Up level is something that I really strive for, and I'm always surprised, pleasantly surprised and amazed when I reach another plateau and I go, oh man, these things go to 11, and 12, and 13, and 14, and 15. Before you know it, you're at 100, and you go, it just keeps getting better.
From Anarchapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I'm back in Las Vegas. I seem to be here way too often lately. Just passing through, just buying some cannabis for my wife at Planet 13. And actually, the last time I was here, I ran into you. I was actually at a dinner with Joby Weeks, and Joby always seems to have a lot of interesting people around. It's usually 20 people at some big dinner, and everyone's like doing interesting things. And you were sitting right beside me, and you mentioned what you were doing. And I told you as you're talking, you're like, oh, I do this, I do that. I'm like putting in my phone. I'm like, I'll probably buy all this stuff because that's what I do, because we were talking about health stuff. And you might have noticed we're talking so much health stuff on this channel lately. I'm just so into this stuff. So he mentioned he does something called a sound lounge, and I ended up ordering one. We're going to get into that. Very interesting. I'm very happy with it so far, and I just got it recently. And you also do like DNA type nutrition stuff, and you also are involved in something called Path Changers.
That's right.
Which is, well, we'll get into that. Let's just leave that. So his name is Craig Gilbert, and we're here in Vegas, as I mentioned. And the first question I have to ask you, though, is how did you become an anarchist?
Anarchist. It's such an interesting topic, right? Because we grow up through these social norms. I was raised in Long Island. I was raised in New York. I went to school. I went to college. I got a job. And at some point, you start to learn a little bit, and you start to realize that maybe this isn't built the best way, and it's not really accurate. And you start reading a couple books. You start talking to the right people, and before you know it, you figure out that this system really isn't built for you, and you're going to start to find your own way. And that's exactly what happened with me.
Cool. So you're basically an entrepreneur. You're very involved in health sort of stuff, but not just health. You're also involved in other things. Sorry, there's always sirens here in the USSA. It's always a crisis or a problem. But let's start with the health-related stuff, because I'm so into this stuff. So as many of you know, we just had so many episodes on Bemer, stem cells. There was some other stuff as well. And I actually have my Bemer actually right here on my bed. I travel with it. And on top of it now, I have the Sound Lounge. And I also do my coffee enemas with like cannabis and kratom on top of it all.
It's quite the regimen.
It's amazing. I know so many people laugh whenever I mention coffee enemas. It's like the things I do is amazing. Like, it changes everything for me.
Your skin looks fantastic. Your complexion looks relaxed. Your beard looks full. I mean, something's working.
Well, I also do stem cells and all that. But yeah, all these things combined have really started to change a lot about me. Not just physically, but mentally, spiritually. Have a lot of spiritual experiences on top of the Bemer and the Sound Lounge. Got the headphones on with some sort of binaural beats or some sort of meditation music. Yeah. And then I got the cannabis and the kratom and the coffee enema. And I'm gone for a couple of hours, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's kind of good that way.
I kind of come back and I'm like, I just like went to school for like a year somewhere and learned a lot about myself and talked to whatever God is or whatever it is. I don't know, but it's amazing. So I know a lot of people think it's kind of like a joke, but like I'm serious about this stuff. So we're going to talk about, you do some DNA sort of nutrition stuff, but I want to talk first about the Sound Lounge because I just got it. So kind of a funny story. We were at that dinner, and you didn't know who I was. I didn't know who you were, but you mentioned it, and I was like, I'm probably buying all this stuff. You're like, yeah, whatever. And then you got an order in from Mexico for the Sound Lounge, and I was actually in Europe, and wires got crossed a little bit, and you actually ended up emailing me. You're like, where did you hear about Sound Lounge? I'm like, from you.
Totally.
And you're like, oh, Jeff,
one of those moments where I didn't put two and two together. I was prepping for my own trip and
going to Burning Man.
I love random orders in Mexico. Why not, right?
So then you're like, oh, it's perfect. We actually produce in Mexico, in Tijuana. We can ship it tomorrow, and it's basically there in 2 days, and it's great. So let's just talk even about that. Like, what is it, and why should people be interested in that?
So the Sound Lounge. So the company's called Holistic Health Science, and we make vibroacoustic technology. We're actually taking a step back, and now we're focused on sensory therapeutics, which is basically any type of device that stimulates more than one of the senses. So the Sound Lounge, for example, is sound, because you're hearing it, and it's also tactile and touch, because you're feeling it. So picture a twin-size mattress. Inside it is a device called a tactile transducer. A little bit different from a transducer you'd find in a subwoofer, although not very different. Basically, when we look at the face of a speaker, we're looking at the cone of a speaker. The cone is designed to take the frequency, which is created by a magnet, the vibrations, 20 vibrations or 20 oscillations per second is a 20 hertz signal. So 20 hertz frequency, 20 oscillations. In a subwoofer that's usually in the corner of a room, the cone projects that sound into the room. There is no cone in the Sound Lounge. We're basically making your body the cone. So the frequency and the vibration comes straight through your body. That harmonizes and aligns with the same frequencies that are coming through the headphones. That then creates this three-dimensional, fully immersive sound experience that allows you to reach these states of ecstasy, these states of talking to God, these states where the body and the mind relax and you're able to drift. We're also inducing different brainwave states. And this is where it gets really interesting, because I've been doing this for 3 years, and I do it in all types of different environments, trade shows, parties, events. I do demos as often as I can. I travel with it everywhere I go. I'm always there to set it up and put people and give people these experiences.
And you'll probably be doing that in Anarchapulco 2020 as well, right?
I very much look forward to that.
Yeah, so
I'm excited
we'll mention
to meet
that more later.
Absolutely. Yeah. So people often will approach me and say, "Will this help me sleep?" And I immediately, because a lot of, particularly here in America and really parts of the world, people have trouble sleeping. And my rebuttal is always, well, why are you having trouble sleeping? What exactly is happening? And for most people, it's I can't turn off my brain. I can't meditate.
Yeah.
I can't get quiet. I can't leave the to-do list alone. What that means is you're being stuck in a beta brainwave state. Beta brainwave state is where we are right now. Eyes open, processing the world around you. I hear the sirens. I'm worried about a guy that might come sweeping down. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But I'm thinking about these things. When you close your eyes and you drift into an alpha brainwave state, that's kind of the target brainwave state for meditation and relaxation. It's a daydream state, between 14 hertz and 8 hertz on the low end. Drifting beneath that is theta brainwave state. This is where recovery happens. It's 8 hertz down to about 4 hertz. And then delta beneath that, which is where a lot of our cellular recovery and rejuvenation happens. When you're sleeping, all your brain is doing is taking you through a cycle of beta, alpha, theta, delta, theta, alpha, beta. And you go in a sleep cycle of about 90 minutes, and you go down and you come back up. So 30 minutes in theta is equivalent to about 8 hours of sleep. So using the Sound Lounge to induce different brainwave states using music and vibration can actually take you through those states, and actually you wake up feeling rejuvenated and rested. Sound Lounge is a really powerful device for those that have trouble turning it off, that need a break. I love bringing a Sound Lounge into a home that has children, because the going rule is when mom's on the Sound Lounge, go to daddy, and when dad is on the Sound Lounge, go to mom. So you get your break, you get your time out, and you get your opportunity to kind of reset the brain. 20-25 minute session on average.
Yeah, very interesting. I just started using it like in the last few weeks, so I'm very new at it and learning a few things. Like, for example, I tried to use a few things on YouTube, and I found that the dynamic range of the music wasn't enough to really make the Sound Lounge really work. But then I found a couple that really brought up the Sound Lounge, and I had one experience with a cannabis enema with kratom, and I was gone for hours, and it was amazing.
That's wonderful.
And I hear a lot of people have that. And one of the things, you brought it up actually, is I hear this from so many people, because I'm new to all this stuff. And 2 years ago, if you told me any of this stuff, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I've never heard of this, right? And now I've been
like
going,
many people watching right now.
Yeah, totally. And so I totally get it. And when I talk to people now, and I'm like, you should really try some of this stuff, like some of this meditation, maybe a Sound Lounge, or maybe the Bemer, or all this kind of stuff. When it comes to meditation, so many people, the first thing they say is, I can't. And I'm like, well, you're kind of screwed. You already just said you can't. So you kind of, your brain listens and it goes, well, we can't. But the reason they say is, they go, I can't turn my mind off. And here's what I've learned about meditation. You can even tell me if I'm wrong on this. I actually thought as well that meditation meant you try to stop your mind from thinking. And I don't think that's the case. And you can tell me if I'm wrong. Now we got the...
welcome to the show.
The show down there. I think the mics won't pick it up too much, so we shouldn't be too bad. But what I've realized now is, what I do at least when I start getting into a meditative state, is I, of course, try to get really relaxed so I can just get calm. And as you get calm, the mind does slow down a little bit, but definitely thoughts are still coming in all the time. And I don't try to stop those thoughts. I just watch them. I'm like, where'd that thought come from? Is that really what it's at?
Yeah, so basically the mind never turns off. We're constantly thinking. What we think about and what we focus is determined in large part, sometimes by what we want to think about. Other times it's based on outside stimuli. Right? There's a breeze that's blowing through your leg, so all of a sudden the counterreceptors in your leg tell you that there's a breeze blowing, and you think, oh, there's a breeze blowing. Other times it's because of an outside stimuli like an interaction that you had, or an experience that you had, or something you just can't get out of your head. Other times it's very much focused, so guided meditation often walk you through a process where it's relax your toes. You're actually thinking about your toes, and you're thinking about your toes relaxing, and then think about your calves relaxing, and now think about your legs and your knees. Your knees are as relaxed as they've ever been. You're actually just guiding the brain into a focused thought pattern to think of these things as you walk up. You're also relaxing and calming, and you might feel your leg get heavier as you're going through that, or your hips get heavier, or your muscles in your back relax a little bit deeper. Guided meditations range from what Tony Robbins will teach you, where it's actually a priming exercise where you're thinking about gratitude, visualization. An important tip, the brain can't actually tell the difference. Your brain that's in your head can't actually tell the difference between this reality, this perceived reality, which is really electrical signals into the brain, telling you what you're seeing, what you're hearing, a dream state, an imaginatory state, or a focused visualization. So if you continue to visualize the success that you want and the things that you want in life, if it's I can't meditate, you will not be able to meditate.
Right. Be very careful what you say you can't do.
Very, very careful. The brain also doesn't understand the word no. So that comes when not necessarily can't, but I don't want to do that. It doesn't understand that. All it hears is you want to do it. So you need to be very careful with how you architect your words especially when you speak them. As you said, when you say something, your brain needs to think it, your mouth says it, your ears hear it. It's this reinforcement loop. So positive affirmations, the two most positive words in the English language, I am, because whatever after that, you are. Right? So I am powerful versus oh, I'm sick. I am sick it's the worst. As we start talking about health and wellness, it irks me when people say that, and I constantly correct them. It was a chiropractor, Brian Stensler, I love you, brother, out in San Diego, who I went into his office one day, and I said, I'm not feeling so good, I'm sick. He said, you're not sick. He says, your body's actually showing off its ability to heal itself. Think of what happens when we get sick. A little diversion here, but think about what happens when we get sick. Let's say you have a low-grade temperature, 99 or 100. Your body is raising its temperature. Why? You have a virus, or you have some type of invader in your body, and it's multiplying. The reason it is in your body in the first place is because it loves to gestate, and it gestates very quickly at 98.6 degrees. So you have these white blood cells that attack it and kind of keep it in check. All of a sudden, the white blood cells go, hey, we're getting outnumbered here. Bring in the cavalry, so to speak. And it tells the brain to raise the body temperature so that the white blood cells can survive, but the invader starts to slow down in its multiplication. Your white blood cells can kill them off faster. The reflex is to take Tylenol or Advil and kill your fever. You're actually extending your body, right? So
almost everyone in the Western world, they get a fever, they go to the doctor, he stops the fever. It's like your body is repairing itself right now.
It's your body's natural reflex, if you will. Yeah. Best to really wrap yourself in a bunch of blankets and sweat it out.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to be very powerful with what you do and how you do it. And when you really start to look at, think of anarchy, right? When you start to think about the cultural norms that we've been taught, especially when it comes to health and wellness, everything that we talk about is on the fringe, when in reality it actually used to be the primary function. Right. Alternative medicine today was the original line of medicine 100, 200 years ago.
Yeah.
So meditation is really nothing more, to go back to your question, meditation is really nothing more than calming the mind, calming the body, and allowing it to drift. getting into that alpha brainwave state, which is a daydream state. It's when you start to, if you're sitting down and all of a sudden you kind of close your eyes for a few minutes and you start to drift off and you have a dream and then you kind of shake out of it, you were in an alpha brainwave state. You were beginning to allow your mind to wander. And that's really all meditation is. I hear that a lot. And I had breakfast this morning with Nicole Miller, and she says, I can't meditate. I said, I'd love to have you come over. I'd love to get you on the Sound Lounge because it's a form of meditation. The sound and the vibrations, especially when your eyes are covered, it's a very dramatic experience, and it really allows the body and the mind to drift, which is really the goal. Once you do that enough, that happens on a regular basis with or without the Sound Lounge. And the Bemer is a great way to do that also. The Bemer spreads out your blood, thins your blood, so I sleep on my Bemer all the time. So,
I think I should almost patent this. The Bemer with a Sound Lounge on top. I don't believe in patents, but I'm joking. But the coffee enema, I think I've got the.
So you've created a protocol, right? I mean, you've created basically a mix and a blend that just says this works.
It just works.
Yeah.
Oh my God! My wife, she used to think I was crazy. Of course, everyone thinks you're crazy when they haven't done this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And after a while of doing it, I finally convinced her, just try it. I'm like, just try it. And, first few times, she's like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's kind of weird or whatever. And now she's the exact same as me. She's like, we have to do this every day. I'm like, yes, every day.
So, look, I'll tell you a little bit about my story and kind of how I got into this. So about 6 years ago, my wife had a couple of health issues that we couldn't figure out. Western medicine was really scratching their head. And I think it's important because this series of symptoms were kind of random for us. So my wife is Turkish. She has beautiful olive skin, never had any issues or blemishes. All of a sudden, she started getting these cysts on her face. And we couldn't figure out what they were from. A couple weeks later, all of her lymph nodes from her waist up became inflamed and hard. Again, couldn't figure out what it was. And then we would go out partying for the weekend, and by Saturday afternoon, she would completely lose her voice to a point where she was whispering, and we couldn't really hear her at all. She didn't have a voice. There was nothing there. Doctor after doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist, nobody could figure it out. I brought a book to one of the doctors. It was Gallbladder Flush. And I said, could this help? He literally took the book away from me, put it on the side. He said, no, this will actually do more harm than good. You shouldn't be doing this, right? First sign for that's not a good doctor. We didn't see him again.
Yeah.
I said to my wife, maybe it's gluten. My wife is Turkish. She eats a Mediterranean diet. At the time, it was lots of pasta, lots of bread, lots of bulgur wheat. It all has gluten. Gluten here in the United States, totally different conversation, is filled with pesticides and all sorts of different issues. I said, maybe it's gluten. She said, no, it can't be gluten. I said, well, let's just cut it out 100% and see what happens. 72 hours later, overnight, on the third night, all of her symptoms went away, like clockwork. As we slowly introduced gluten, it came back. The symptoms came back. So, of course, she gave up gluten, I gave up gluten. Over the first 6 months, I kept getting these head colds. I now know, in hindsight, that it was a detoxification. The Herxheimer reaction, right? It gets worse before it gets better. Often you have this reaction to it. The body is detoxing. The skin is the largest organ. It comes up and out the nose and the mouth, and it appears as a head cold, when in reality, right? So this happened 6 months, 3 times over 6 months. I'm searching in bed. I learn about genetically modified food. This leads me down a wormhole of how they genetically modify our food, and I become horrified at our American agricultural system. That led me to basically becoming exceptionally vigilant about these 3 main areas. What I put in my mouth, what I keep on my skin, and what I keep in the air around me. And that led to, obviously, diet changes, which we can talk about. And then eventually it led to sound healings, holistic health science, the VibroAcoustic Sound Lounge, diving down into sound, light, and frequency therapy, because there's light therapy as well. The Bemer isn't light, it's pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. But there's also LED therapy, blue spectrum, red spectrum. There's a ton of white papers and research on the efficacy of that, infrared heat. And as I'm diving down this wormhole, I'm meeting some of the most incredible human beings, many of which you might have talked to on your show, many of which are independent vibroacoustic visionaries and sell sound lounges and use them alongside other modalities. And as I start meeting all these people, I start learning about all these different things, just like you did. This was 6 years ago. Now I'm not surprised by anything that I hear. And in fact, somebody sits down and tells me they've got the greatest thing and they've created this, and I go, can I try it? I'll give you a quick story. I was just laying in something called the Laser Lounge. I was just in Denver. Sunday night, I'm telling my friends about my sound lounge, and they say, we got to get you in the Laser Lounge. And it's basically a bunch of lasers, vibroacoustic, transducers, sound, light, behind this huge control pod that's basically made as a prototype. And I'm now, on a Sunday night, I just went for a hike through El Dorado Canyon, and I'm laying in this thing called the Laser Lounge with a huge smile on my face, just laughing and giddy at what these two gentlemen had created.
Wow, yeah, I'll probably buy one of those.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, there's so many things out there, and you brought up one good point. Some people, I've actually seen this, because I talk a lot about this sometimes on my Facebook page, and someone will try something. They'll try like a fast, or they'll try some sort of detox sort of stuff, and they'll go, I felt really crappy. It's like, you're actually detoxing. That's good. That's what you want. If you're fasting for a couple of days and you all of a sudden feel like you got the flu, or like you feel like crap, your body's getting out so many toxins. You're actually going too fast. You actually need to probably do a coffee enema to get them out.
Get out faster.
Actually, the enema is really important, in my opinion. This is my opinion, because as your body's detoxing, it'll help get it out a lot faster. Yeah.
So look, there are a few different ways that you can get things out. Through your nose, through your eyes and tears, through your mouth, through your skin, through the backside, through the front. That's it, right? And when the body needs to get things out, it gets it out. So from an energy perspective, actual like strength energy perspective, the two most expensive processes in the body are your brain and thinking, which is about 20%, and digestion right behind that. So when you drift into a fast and you layer on some other type of supplement, nutrient, mineral, something where you're taking it in a large enough dose, a clinical dose, your body is going to detoxify, especially if you're fasting, because your body is not focusing on digestion. It's one of the reasons why I love intermittent fasting so often. If you can water fast every Sunday or one day a week, that's a fantastic thing to do. If you can go further than that, of course, do it under a doctor's supervision, or at least somebody who knows what they're doing. That detoxifying period, the Herxheimer reaction, is a very real thing, and Herxheimer is the one who discovered it. So it's something to remind people for sure as they're starting on a new regimen. Sometimes you'll feel worse before you feel better, and that's things pushing out. And on the other side, you're going to feel amazing. Yeah. Lots of different plant medicines do that too.
Yeah, it's amazing. The more I find out about this stuff, the more it's like almost like common sense. Like why don't we know this stuff, right? Like for some reason, for the last whatever years, they've hidden a lot of this information, or they've like told you don't, like when I first started fasting a couple of years ago, I was like I don't never get scared or anything, right? But I go on Facebook, I'm going to try a fast. I heard it works. Everyone posted, don't, you're going to die. If you don't eat for 2 days, you're going to die. I was like, what, really? Day 2 of my fast, I'm like on the treadmill. I'm like, I've never had this much energy in my life.
Strong.
I'm like, I've never thought so clearly in years. So yeah, like so many of this stuff is so simple. Like just, you know, like a lot of people are sick and they go to the doctor, he gives them a bunch of pills, and then they're like sick for the rest of their lives. When all it really takes for a lot of people is just don't eat for a few days, get some exercise, make sure you're eating some good food, and like that doesn't mean necessarily just anything you buy at a grocery store. A lot of that stuff is not good for you at all. And other little things, like I just learned this from another person the other day. I was talking to him, and he's like, you know why so many people are sick up in like the northern regions? There's a few reasons. One is they don't get a lot of sun, and we really need some sun. That's where we get our vitamin D and all that, right? But he also said they spend a lot of their times in their houses, and their houses are just like these concrete or whatever, and that air in there is basically becoming very, very toxic.
Oh, yeah.
We need to be outside or have a house that's actually made of things that lets the house breathe, right?
Look at the Earthship.
Yeah, I just learned about this. So very basic stuff that we used to do hundreds of thousands of years ago, but now, for whatever reason, this is all like, for me, like new information.
So you kind of nailed it. It's all about toxicity. And this body is constantly filtering out toxins. And we live in a very toxic world.
Yeah.
I mean, even as we sit here in this gorgeous hotel room, the materials that were used, there could be oil and petroleum-based substances that are in the carpet as you sit here barefoot, right? Which I'm barefoot all the time. The biggest pores in your feet are in your feet, so you're constantly absorbing things. It's how we actually used to get our minerals, is walking around on the dirt, walking around on the grass. You absorb from the earth exactly what you need. We live
now most people never would go out and walk on grass barefoot, right?
Most people are wearing
live in a city, they got the
rubber-soled shoes on, and I usually recommend to people, look, if you're on man-made objects like concrete, it's usually best to
step
put a
on
rubber
nails
sole
and
on.
stuff.
Yeah, protect your feet.
Broken glass.
But you kind of nailed it, right? Like, our bodies are constantly detoxifying, and if we can give them a break from that by giving them healthy, clean food, fresh, clean air, fantastic, crisp water from a spring or a natural location, you breathe. And when I say breathe, I mean taking a deep guttural breath, filling your lungs with oxygen. Most people don't even take deep breaths.
I know. I didn't even know that's something you should do. And when I started to learn that as part of, like, just doing meditation, and some people say, oh, do some breath therapy or whatever it is.
Breath work is great.
And they're like, breathe really deep, and I do it like really big. And I'm like, I don't know if I've ever done that in my life. Like my whole life, I've just been walking around like.
When you check yourself, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling like, just don't feel my best right now, take note of how you're breathing. Chances are you're breathing very shallow.
Yeah.
Very quick, very
so
shallow.
Not much oxygen.
Take a deep breath, and before you know it, of course you're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel relaxed. You're gonna feel calm. You'll notice your shoulders relax. The stress and the tightening of your back start to relax, and it's really powerful. Sunlight is something else you really touched on, and the conversion of vitamin D. Maybe this is a good time to drift into the DNA work that we do.
Sure.
Because in working with this company over the last 8 months, I've been learning more and more about the hardware, what we're actually given from our mom and our dad, and how that correlates to how we live our lives and symptoms that we may experience while we're living our life. So this company that I work for, it's called Euphoria Science, and I'm one of the main leaders here in Las Vegas, and we're available in the United States and Canada and growing. And we're basically a DNA nutritional supplement company that takes from a swabbing of the inside of your cheek off to a HIPAA-compliant lab. We analyze 650,000 genetic variants. They're called SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms. We then really analyze 18 of those actionable SNPs, and then we make a formula made specifically for you. So whether you read the 35-page wellness action plan or you don't, at your doorstep every month shows up a supplement pack made of 93 plant-based, wild-crafted, organic when it can be, ingredients, without allergens, no dairy, no gluten, no soy, made specifically for you and your gene expression. So these 18 overarching SNPs that we look at are things like healthy weight management, cardiovascular issues, inflammatory response, immune response, vitamin D and vitamin B, and how your body actually converts or methylates that. This is really interesting to me because as I start digging into the science behind each one, and each one of these ingredients, 93 ingredients, has at least 2 peer-reviewed studies that link the ingredient to the gene expression. Epigenetics, nutrigenomics are some of the buzzwords that you can start to search, but it's basically using diet and lifestyle to influence gene expression. This is awesome because it's no longer a conversation of nature versus nurture. Conversation's answered, it's both. What are you given and what environment do you keep it in? So let's take the VDR gene, which oversees how we convert vitamin D from the sun. So if you have this genetic variant from both parents, you either can have it from both parents, one parent, or neither parent. If you have it from both parents, it means you're only converting 30% of the usable sunlight into vitamin D. Compared to somebody who has a green, they don't have that genetic variant, they have 100% option. Fantastic if you're in, say, South Florida or Las Vegas where you get lots of sunlight. That 30% deficiency, or if you're handcuffed to only have 30%, it's probably fine. You're not going to be deficient when you do your blood work. But if you go to some place that lives in a northern country or a northern state where it's the middle of February, that person is probably going to be exceptionally deficient in vitamin D, and you need to supplement it. And you need to supplement it in a version that you can absorb it. I really like these transdermal patches for vitamin D in particular. Working with a functional medicine practitioner, working with a naturopathic doctor, working with somebody that knows this is really where it's at. Because you're right, you go to somebody in the mainstream, they're going to look at your blood, they're going to see you're deficient, they're going to tell you to supplement vitamin D, they're not going to want to know why. And getting into the gene expression and getting into the DNA, I think this is the next frontier. Stem cells, DNA-based, insert here. I think we're going to be walking around and it's literally going to be hotel rooms made for you, dinner made for you, smoothies made for you, and everything that's made custom for you specifically because as much as we're all the same, we're all different.
Yeah, totally. That makes a ton of sense. So that's one thing that you mentioned at the dinner that night that I haven't tried yet. And the reason I didn't is I'm down in Mexico, and I was like, oh, I got to do this swab and send it up and all that kind of stuff. But I'm definitely, based on what you've been telling me, not just in this interview but before, I'm definitely going to be doing it.
It's super interesting.
Yeah, I think that's sort of like you said, sort of the next level. It's kind of weird how, like, we were all really good thousands of years ago. There was no cancer or anything, right? And whatever happened the last few thousand years, now everyone's sick all the time. And then some people are catching on. They're like, okay, I'll eat organic, I'll take some vitamins or whatever, right? But it's all kind of like very generic, just, everyone take the same thing. So what you're talking about is kind of like the next level. That's right. Let's like specify it for person.
Blind nutrition, right?
Yeah.
Pulling blind supplementation. Go to GNC where a batch is 250,000 bottles of this particular vitamin C, and somebody says, hey, take this vitamin C, you're going to feel better, it's going to boost your immune system, or whatever it is, the science that you're looking at, which is valid, but it's not necessarily right for everybody, especially when you get into the vitamin Bs, folate in particular. There's the MTHFR gene, which actually talks about how your body methylates or absorbs, how it actually absorbs folate, vitamin B9. If you have this genetic variant, you need a methylated version of B9. Folic acid won't work for you, just to use some buzzwords that people are familiar with. Pregnant women, for the longest time, women have been told, make sure you're taking folic acid. Now the supplement companies are actually picking up on the fact that they need to offer a methylated version of folate so that 70% of the population that have this particular genetic variant can absorb folic acid. They need the methylated version. So at least some of the supplement companies are starting to look into this research and starting to take advantage of it. But you hit the nail on the head when you start to talk about what was and what is. The reality is our food supply today is nothing of what it used to be.
Right.
You used to eat from a garden that was in your neighborhood. It might have been a communal garden. I'll grow the rice, you grow the corn, you grow this. And you're going to share that at a farmer's market.
It was organic, it was fresh, and the soil still had a lot of nutrients.
No pesticides, and you nailed the nutrient density of the soil. Huge. Today, agriculture has been so mass-produced,
right.
It just doesn't have the nutrient density, one. Two, most people don't have the diversity in their diet. So you're not eating enough of a lot of foods. We talked of a guy who eats steak. That's all he eats. You're not getting enough from, even if that animal was eating all of the different fruits, you're just not getting enough nutrient diversity in your diet. So supplementation often makes a lot of sense because you're getting a broad spectrum. I can't eat cucumbers and carrots and beets and pomegranates, and I'm just not consuming all of these foods every single day, so it makes sense to supplement at least a small amount of each of those foods so you're getting a broad spectrum of nutrients every day.
Very interesting, and I feel like I'm overloading people a little bit on the health stuff, but I think it's so important, and you can probably see the changes in me, just like so much more energy. I can't believe the stuff I'm doing, actually. Compared to like 5 years ago, like I look at what I do every day now. I just came from LA. I was there last night with a bunch of comedian guys. We hung out afterwards. I wake up this morning. I do all my routine. I've got everything with me. You've seen all the stuff.
It's awesome.
And then I get on a plane, and of course that kind of sucks, but then I get here, and I have to go buy cannabis for my wife. I get here, we're setting up this interview. Now after this, I'm going for dinner with some friends. I wouldn't have been able to do that a couple years ago. I just did not have the energy levels at all.
So let's talk for a second about path changers, because that kind of steps back and allows for a broader spectrum. So Michael Zappia, one of my business partners, coined the phrase path changers a few years ago. And it goes back to a point where somebody approached him in a gym and changed his path. Many of us, when we think of people that influenced us from the outside or gave us an opportunity or shared something with us, you can look back in life and go, if that didn't happen, I would have still been doing this, and instead now I'm doing that, and that led to this, and your path was changed. So Path Changers is a once morning daily show. Every morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, we're on Facebook and Zoom. We teach, train, and educate around 7 main pillars: spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, relationally, nutritionally, and financially. And all of these pillars are intertwined, and all of the things that we talk about typically touch on many of the pillars. But look at what we're talking about: spiritual balance, emotional balance, mental balance, physical balance, nutrition, relationships, and of course financial, your relationship with money, and of course where that income is coming from. We take a holistic approach to this because your health is so many different. If you don't have your health, it's very difficult to be spiritual. If you don't have your health, your physical health, it's very difficult to have mental balance. emotional balance, relationship balance. So all the things that you're doing for health and wellness in your body, your mind, and your spirit help you to be a better human, help you to show up and be a better dad, to be a better mentor, to be a better teacher. When you have the energy, you're making better decisions. So it's so foundational. Health and wellness is like, it's just such an important part of what I do each and every day. I love the decisions that I make because I don't feel bad when I make a healthy decision for myself or somebody's doing something that I don't, you can do it. I choose not to do that. I know that it's giving me more vitality, more energy. I eat to live, I don't live to eat. And that was a big determining factor for me in a lot of the decisions I made, including my morning routine, my evening routine, the decisions I make throughout the day. It's all about having better mental clarity, better focus, and showing up to be a better human.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the mental clarity part because when I was doing the fast, I was like, I've never been so clear mentally. And it's because my body wasn't spending all its time working on all the digestion. So I was just like clean. And when you're clean, and I try to explain this to some people sometimes because it's hard for people to understand if they've never felt it, right? So one way I explain it is, you know, when you're like really tired, you've just had a 15-hour day, it's been the hardest day, you're exhausted, you come home, and if you have to do anything mentally, you can't. You're just, you have no mental fatigue. You're just impossible. Like you look at a crossword puzzle, you're like, I don't know the answer. Like tic-tac.
You look at your pantry of what to eat and you don't know the answer.
Right. But then you wake up the next day, you're quite a bit more refreshed, and all of a sudden, whatever you were trying to figure out the last night, all of a sudden it's easy.
Yeah.
And so basically what you're saying is if you can get very quite healthy physically and all that kind of stuff, you're like that morning type thing all day long.
Throughout the day.
Yeah.
There's no more, I call it up-leveling, right? And for folks that are watching or that haven't experienced it, it's really interesting over my journey, and I'm sure you've had something similar. You start to make one change, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm sleeping better at night. And that sleeping better at night leads to another change, and you make that, and all of a sudden you start feeling better during the day. And before you know it, you don't need that cup of coffee in the morning, even though I love bulletproof coffee. But all of a sudden you don't need it. It's something you enjoy, but it's not necessary. And then you up-level again, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I didn't get tired this afternoon. And you up-level again, and then somebody teaches me something new, like I'm excited to try a coffee enema. I've actually never done it, for another up-level, right? Like, you just keep up-leveling and up-leveling and up-leveling, and it's a very common side effect actually with our DNA nutritional supplement, because people start to feel better, they plateau, and then they forget what they used to feel like. They don't feel themselves up-leveling because they're not changing anything else in their lives, and they go, oh, this isn't working anymore. When in reality, as soon as you stop taking the product, you go back to where you were, and you go, oh, it was working. I just didn't realize it. So that up-level is something that I really strive for, and I'm always pleasantly surprised and amazed when I reach another plateau and I go, oh man, these things go to 11, and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15. Before you know it, you're at 100, and you go, it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I can't imagine, well, I change all the time, but I can't imagine stopping doing all this stuff that I'm doing. Like, it's just added so much to my life. And I actually spend like hours and hours every day just doing this stuff. Yeah. Like, I actually plan now, I try not to ever have a meeting before 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And basically, until 2 or 3 in the afternoon, I'm meditating, yoga, coffee enema, gym, all kinds of stuff. Like for like hours, I'm just doing that stuff.
You gotta take care of the body, right? And that's an aggressive meditation process. And
it's not like I'm meditating the whole time, but like I'm doing some sort of health thing. Yeah.
No, look, it's a fantastic practice. And what I tell people is, look, try this for 90 days. Stick with it, push through it. If you do have the Herxheimer reaction and it gets worse before it gets better, punch through it, see how you feel on the other side. If at the end of the 90 days you don't feel better and it's not working for you, that's okay. Different strokes for different folks. What works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you, but I will challenge you, and if it does feel better, keep doing it. And adopt that practice, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And far too often people go, I feel fantastic. And what I love about doing what I do, so my parent company is called Gold Zulu Incorporated, and we catalyze positive changes in health using science and technology. One of the most favorite parts of what I do is seeing the positive changes in my friends and family. I'll notice they're up earlier. I'll notice they have more energy. I'll notice their mental clarity is there. I'll notice they're more creative. They're working on additional projects. All of a sudden, they work a 9 to 5, and they have the energy to work on a side project or a side hustle from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. without any problem. Seeing those positive changes in my friends and watching them up level, it's something that I take quite a lot of pride and joy in. I know my wife does too. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. So, as I mentioned, it's kind of like almost overwhelming people with too much health stuff here. But like I said, and like if this, because we're talking about so many things now for like so many episodes. If a lot of this you don't really understand, don't worry about it. Just try a couple of small things. Come back to this maybe in 6 months and rewatch it, and maybe you'll get some new ideas and stuff like that. But I think this is so important to help a lot of people. So. Do want to keep this a little bit shorter as well. A lot of people have ADHD or whatever they call it, which is a total scam. It's like, oh, that kid, he can't sit still and regurgitate
chugging down
garbage.
6 Coca-Colas.
Yeah, and sit there for 8 hours and listen to government propaganda and sit still. Like, kids aren't supposed to be running around out there, right? They sit there and ask to go to the washroom. He's got ADHD.
That energy.
Yeah, and now give him meth. Adderall and all this kind of stuff. So the whole system's so screwed. But the cool thing is you don't have to be part of the system, and you can just totally find your own way, and a lot of these ways are those ways. So let's just mention again what you do, like some links, and we'll put the links all down below.
Absolutely.
So there's the Path Changers,
yep.
sorry. These Gold Zulu
Incorporated is science and technology for healing. Holistic Health Science is our VibroAcoustic Sound Lounge company.
And I want to mention, we'll put a link down below and people can get a discount on that.
Absolutely.
Or something.
Yeah, we'll offer a 5% discount to anybody who's watching anytime, and that link will be down in the show notes.
Yeah, and I'll just mention it is a bit expensive. It's a few $1,000s for the one I got anyway. He actually gave me a free upgrade. That was really nice. Thank you. But what I would say is if you only have a few $1,000s, I probably wouldn't just get the Sound Lounge right now. I would focus on building your own business and making some money, really. I'm not saying, if you have $2,000, that's your last $2,000, get the Sound Lounge. I wouldn't do that. I would actually look at other things and try to make some more money and stuff like that. But if you've got quite a bit of money and you're working on a lot of stuff and you think, oh, I'd like to improve my meditation, all that kind of stuff, then I definitely would recommend getting that. So I've got the link to that down below. And then you also do the DNA stuff, which I'm going to do.
DNA-based nutrition is Euphoria Science, and we'll put a link down there as well.
Awesome.
And I want to share with everybody, if you have questions, we'll put my email address, we'll put my phone number. If you're here in the United States or really anywhere, give me a call. Let's talk about what you have going on. I can make some suggestions. I'm going to be at Anarchapulco. I would love to be a speaker, and I love making myself available. So as you approach me, we're on the beach, we're at a bar, you see me talking, you see me at one of my booths, whatever it might be, approach me, ask the questions, because it's one of the things that I absolutely love. Awesome. Asking specific questions and answering, hey, what if I do this, what if I do that, and giving people advice as to where they can at least go to find those answers.
That's great, and that's a big part of the health and wellness part of Anarchapulco. You haven't been, I don't
I'm
think.
So excited.
But we're going to have so many amazing people. Just off the top of my head, we haven't announced anyone yet. I think it's going to be announced any day, but Josh Mason of the Detox Dudes, the guy who does my stem cells and human growth hormone and testosterone injections in Puerto Vallarta, that's Josh Kettner of the Dream Body Clinic, Dr. Buckley, all kinds of doctors, but good doctors, not your typical doctors. The guys who actually use their brains and they're like, oh, what if this works? And we don't have to just give people pills, and there's other ways. So it's going to be before and after the conference. So if you're at all interested in this stuff, you should definitely come down early for Anarchapulco. You'll be there, a lot of great people. And just like you said, you haven't been, but it's like this. For a week, we're all just hanging out. We're on the beach, we're at the bar, and you can just come up and talk to a lot of us.
It is one of the things that I love about going to trade shows and conferences is the people that you meet. It's the networking, it's the connection. I mean, frankly, it's how we met here. It was Anarcho
Vegas, yeah.
So, we're sitting down. In fact, it was your first, I don't know if it's still up on your Instagram, it was your first Instagram Live. So I don't know if that conversation is actually still there or if actually still up. You're recording the whole thing.
Oh, I forgot.
We're just sitting here talking. I'm just meeting this guy for the first time. He's like, I'm just going to mess around. I'm just going to put this up. You don't mind, do you?
Some girl told me, she's like, you should just put Instagram Live and just put it at the dinner table. I was like, all right. I forgot I even did that.
You did. It was awesome. And it's these types of conversations where you're just hanging at the bar, talking. And I find myself in these conversations on a regular basis, talking about up-leveling or different brainwave states or different ecstatic states or states of ecstasy. And it's what I love to do. So I look forward to the conversations.
Yeah, so we'll have all the links down below. Anarchapulco is February 13th to 16th. The Health and Wellness is before and after. Well, it's actually 10 full days if you can make it for the whole 10. But the actual conference itself, without the Health and Wellness and all the other stuff, is 4 days. But we actually have Health and Wellness running throughout the conference because it's so important. So all the links to all that down below. It's too much information. We've got the whatever that is.
The Bellagio fountain is
going
pumping.
up. We've got the sirens going on. I got to go get dinner, and maybe you'll come as well. And we'll leave it at that. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. Especially if you know anyone who's not doing too well. If you've got some bad health or whatever, like this is the important information. How many horror stories have we heard? You go to the doctor, and like you said, they just, I don't know. And you give them some like good information, like, hey, this seems to work. They're like, oh, well, they didn't tell us about that in
this
school.
can do more harm than good. And it's like, look, the reality is we live in a toxic world, and as you remove the toxicity or help the body to detoxify, much of that will go away. And you mentioned fasting is a great place to start too, of course, controlled. Yeah, there's a little, important things to know about all this stuff, and I think we've had episodes on many of these things, but do your research as well. Like, don't just go off and do a fast without even talking to anyone or looking into it or reading something about it, like actually look into this stuff. But we're trying to give you some good information, and like I said, just so share this with anyone who's not doing too well or, might need some sort of help sort of in those sort of areas. And come on down to Anarchapulco. So we'll leave it at that here in Las Vegas, and that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
Anarchapulco is so hype, I'm trying to tell ya. This the event of the year and best vacation ever. Ron Potter, Jeffrey Tucker, just to name a few. Get your tickets, you don't want to miss it. You should roll through, talking politics to health and self-improvement to investing. So many things, not one thing. Learn how to live life unchained, 4 days vibing on the beach, time to connect. All about growth, way more than a conference. This is Anarchapulco, let's go.
You ain't seen nothing yet.